this is a modified version of the slide deck that we use in our advanced search management class, and I've cut a few slides out and try to keep the timing down and all. But kind of what I intend to cover today, I think we have around 4 hours before lunch and after lunch, is to talk about introduction to Caltopo desktop and its features and how to use them. And that'll probably be not super interesting for people that have used this a lot, but it is worth going over so everybody, is included along the way if you don't have a lot of experience with it. The other thing I kind of notice is there's new features all the time, including sometimes I'll teach a class and someone will tell me about a new feature I don't even know about yet, and I'm supposed to be the teacher. So there may be a few surprises in there. And then part two, I'm going to go into mission planning and some best practices with respect to how you put a good plan together for a search. Part three is how you manage large incidents. And this is where I think a lot of searches go off the rails, where you're on day 2 or 3 or 4. You have all kinds of data and it all becomes a jumbled mess at some point if you're not really disciplined in about how you store your data and manage it within Caltopo and within your ICP and so forth. And then finally, per request, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to manage fire evacs and fire recoveries. I worked on a lot of fires. It's kind of changing in California, but there's still a big role for search and rescue teams in fire. And I'm sure in Oregon, you guys are quite involved as well. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. So with that, I think I focus a lot on Caltopo because it is one of the most important keys in a search. I think about communications and mapping as like two of the most important things. If you don't have communications or mapping, you can't run a search at all. And I think just to go give you a little bit of history, Matt Jacobs, who's the founder and owner of Caltopo, was a member of, or is a member of Bay Area Mountain Rescue, Tahoe Nordic Mountain Rescue Team, as well as Nevada County in California Rescue Team. And I first met him around 2012, I think, and he had this prototype that he had built for that became Caltopo. And he said, there's really no good software for search and rescue. And he's a developer, and he said, I kind of built this as a hobby, and I'm going to try to roll it out to the SAR community. And then that became a gigantic project. And then it turned into like a one-man business, basically. Eventually, it was a side project that turned into a full-time job. And after a few years, Matt said, "I'm either in or I'm out. I can't compete with the bigger companies in mapping if I don't do that, and it's killing me because I'm a one-person shop and I can't do this by myself." So he eventually ramped this up. This was probably 2016, 2017, and that's where all the new functionality and documentation. There's great training tools and of course, the mobile app, which kind of changed search and rescue, in my opinion. It's completely changed the way we do our workflows and the effectiveness of search and rescue operations. So, I want to give a big shout out to Matt Jacobs for, sticking with this, pursuing it, and developing it because it's really dramatically improved the effectiveness of SAR teams, I think. So, how do we use it today? I'm kind of jumping forward a little bit, but the way we do it in our team kind of came out of the pandemic a little bit. So I don't know if you guys use remote planning type functions up in Oregon, but one of the things we do here is heavily rely on remote planners. So I can be sitting at home. I can't. We have a big search in El Dorado, for instance, which is up by Tahoe, going on today for a missing hiker. And a lot of that work can be done remotely. We can work on assignments. We can manage the data and clean up the data. We can do some investigations work remotely. We build our IAPs remotely and then have them reviewed at the ICP, missing person flyers, social media for more urban searches and things. And then you have the ICP overhead team up on, the mountains somewhere, and they're doing their local investigations, working with law enforcement and so forth. They're putting together their planning priorities because they know more about what's going on than I do remotely. And then they receive just-in-time assignments and they can set those deployment priorities. And then they can iterate with me. And at the end of the day, they can say, "Hey, Rich, I got a ton of stuff on this map. Would you mind cleaning it all up, organizing it, and so forth?" And the big advantage is, there's no one yelling in the command post. we have a large pool of people that we can draw on. And so a lot of times, and you probably have this situation up there where you have, oops, fairly small counties that have small teams, but you have an incident in a gigantic remote area. And so it's a pretty effective tool to be able to call on people who are at home and they can help build things. And none of that's possible without Caltopo being a truly interactive, framework now. And it wasn't always that way. So this is kind of what it looks like for us. Throw Starlink in the middle here. There's a dish, and we can do all this stuff at home and support the on-site team and then iterate back and forth. And it just makes quite a bit more of an effective, workflow, and it all flows through Caltopo. And so we teach this in many of our classes and how to do this pretty effectively. So what I want to do in part one here is kind of go through the introduction of the desktop platform, talk about the basic functionality, and it's changed a lot over the last 2 or 3 years. As I mentioned, Matt was a one-person shop who's now around a 10-person shop. So the level of productivity and change and evolution and feature sets, it's just constantly um, improving. So there's a lot of new stuff. And then I'm going to kind of show you, like for people that are new, especially how you would put in a basic hasty search plan in here and create effective maps and draw, those initial assignments, and then how you print things and distribute things via the mobile app. Any questions so far or comments? Okay. So, uh, this is a point of confusion still today a little bit about feature comparisons. People hear about SARTopo, Caltopo. Well, they're pretty much the same thing now. That was not true until recently. The Caltopo and SARTopo servers used to be separate instances, and you couldn't share information between the two. Now it's all one big integrated server. So there's kind of four different types of Caltopo. There's the browser type, which we're going to focus on today, which is basically, using your Chrome web browser to create search plans and all that sort of thing. And, you can collaborate. You can have, when we're writing remote plans, we might have 6 or 7 people on a phone call, conference call, and we're all breaking up how we do those assignments and so forth. And then obviously you have tons and tons of layers to choose from, including custom layers. We can do full mission planning, and you can import and export and sync and back up between all sorts of different applications. Another one that you'll hear, which is kind of confusingly named, is Caltopo Desktop. And this was a lot more important before the advent of Starlink, because at a remote command post, we wouldn't have, internet many times. So you would have to run Caltopo locally on your laptop, let's say, and it basically runs a server that's just like the big servers up in the cloud, except you run it locally and you can do your mission planning and all. This has become pretty much not important anymore because everyone has, satellite internet now, and that's been another big change over the last 3 or 4 years. But there are still times where it makes sense to use it, and not many people have it installed. But the big advantage is if you're worried about intermittent internet issues, or maybe the Caltopo server crashes. We had that happen on a big search one time, and he had about a 2 hour outage in the middle of a 150-person search. So that was really not good. But if you run that offline version on your laptop, it syncs constantly to the cloud. And if you either lose your internet connection or, God forbid, Caltopo crashed, it hasn't crashed since that day 6 or 7 years ago. But if it did, you would have basically real-time redundancy. So that's the idea of desktop. Most people don't go to the trouble of installing it, but it's there if you want it, and it's handy. The next one would be the civilian version, and basically it's the same now as the SAR version, except it doesn't include all that mission planning information and so forth. And then finally, the big game changer is the mobile app, which wasn't a possibility until Matt had ramped up his team and so forth. And now this is the go-to. I remember the first alpha version of the mobile app, he sent it to us, and we had a local search here in Marin County for a missing boater, actually. And we turned it on, and it was like it changed everything. It was amazing. And it quickly led to an almost entirely paperless workflow for us. So it's the greatest, which I'm sure those of you who use it a lot would probably agree with. I mentioned this briefly. I think, do you guys all have team accounts up there? Pretty much. Yeah. Okay. So I won't spend any real time on it. I think you know the advantage of those. And then we're going to jump ahead here and go into the online version. I'm going to just shift my browser over and we're going to talk about settings, how do you manage your data, the collaboration features, which have changed quite a bit, the search box, moving around the map, layers, functions, objects, shortcuts, printing, import, export, and there's some other cool stuff in there too. And with that, I'm going to change my share window. Give me 1 second. All right, come on. There we go. Chrome. All right. How's that look for everybody? Clear enough? Do I need to zoom? Is that better? Little higher magnification. I'll go with that for now, just so you can see things a little bit better. So here's what you get. I do recommend Chrome. Safari works, Firefox works. The window one, Defender, no, Windows, I forget what it's called. That one works, but they almost all have little quirks here and there, except for Chrome. Chrome's very reliable platform for running Caltopo. So I tend to always use that at real searches. So the way you start, upper right corners, you log in, and on our team account, we have our own email addresses. So ours is marinsar.org. And I just click on that and I log in, and now I'm presented with this big interface. And so one of the first things I like to talk about are the settings, which are right up here. Settings are unique to each browser that you use. So if you use a different computer, your settings don't carry over. So you have to kind of check those each time you use a new machine or a team machine or something like that. So what I do is I go in here, make sure that everything is set up the way I want it. Labels, you have a couple of choices, all non-overlapping, so it's less dense, or none. I do use none sometimes on big searches where there's just so much data and I don't want to see any labels until I need to. But most of the time, I just leave it on all. As you move down here, default mode is important. If you select recreation by default, then you're going to start creating your SAR map. And after like a couple of minutes, you're like, wait a minute, I can't add any objects to my map because all the SAR parts are missing. And that can catch people up sometimes. And so most of the time it was caused because you created the map in recreation mode. So you want to make sure it's in SAR mode. If you do accidentally create a map in recreation mode, you can fix it by going over after you save it and change a setting here and reload the map, and then you can get your SAR stuff back. You don't have to kill the map or anything like that. And then datum WGS84 is default, and we always use that now. And then we use, I assume you use UTM in Oregon. We use UTM down here. And then we always do degrees and decimal minutes. Secondly, because that's what helicopters want down here. And military helicopters, they all want degrees, decimal minutes. So we want to make sure we always have those coordinates handy. And once I set those and I exit that dialog, you'll see there's a box up here that shows me the wherever my cursor is. Let me go to just somewhere up in Oregon here. Okay, so once I'm up here in the mountains, I'll see wherever my cursor is, I'll see the elevation in that box, my datum, my lat long, and my UTM. So that's a good place to start. I've got all of that, configured the way I want it. And now I want to go into your data. This is a new layout that's been around for about 2 years. Um, Relatively new anyway. And you're going to see on the left-hand column basically your personal data. So this is my own stuff for my own personal use, and it's all kept for me. I create a lot of maps and map sets for our team. So when I'm trialing them or messing around with them before I put them into production, I'll keep them in my personal account, for example. And then when I go into like my Marin SAR account, I will see a bunch of folders that you can create and manage. Up until about a year ago, there were no folders here. So you had a big flat file with hundreds of maps listed, and it was very, very confusing. So you can see right now we have, live searches going on up in the Sierras here. So we have a bunch of fresh maps over on this side. So Just to zoom in for a minute, if I click on, let me go to my personal one. If I click on your data, you're going to see things like PDFs that you've saved. When you create a PDF, generate a map, by default, it only saves for, I believe, 7 days. And that's because it costs a lot of money to host all of this data for Caltopo. So if you have something that's important, then you need to go in and change how long you save it. So for instance, if I go in here and say boot camp first Sunday, I can go in and change how long I want to save it. If I click on that, I can say, you know what, I want to keep this another year and hit save. And that means that my map will be retained much longer. And then everything else is saved permanently. You can have your map layers that you've created and hosted here, map sheets, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and how to create your own. You can have custom icons as well. I have a bunch that I've created for our team because frankly, there are a few that are missing that we find very useful. And then I can break things up into other things like, travel training, in our SAR account, we break it into things like training maps and incident maps, basically, and then we drill down from there. So that all works pretty well. You can move maps around, drag and drop them, and so forth. And that's pretty much where you retain all of your data. Next thing I want to mention briefly is a map box, and it works kind of like Google search. So, you kind of want to say, um, I want to find, say, Alpine Lake in, or let's say Alpine Lake in Marin County. That's one of our local uh, maps or locations. I can hit that and it'll pop right in on Alpine Lake in Marin County. But I can also say Lake Alpine in Alpine County, and hopefully that will work. And now it finds the right Alpine Lake in a different county. So it kind of works just like Google search, and you can usually find points of interest that might be kind of obscure and locate them on here. So search box is your friend. So let's talk next about how we share a map. I'm going to start by just putting one object on a map. I'm just going to put a marker, which I'm going to talk about more in a minute, just a blank marker. And as soon as I put something on the map, it's going to prompt me to save it. I'm going to say test map. You can see I have another shot of saving it in SAR mode here if I made that mistake the first time. I'm going to save it in SAR mode into my personal account, into my data. I can give it a name if I want, and then I can save it. In this particular case, it's set up that anyone who knows the URL of this map when I save it can find it. And that's kind of a security risk, right? Because one of the things we ran into over the years was that, reporters or family members would show up at a search and they would kind of shoulder surf over you and they would write down the URL of that map, and all of a sudden they're following your search. That is not a good thing. So what Matt has done is he's changed the priority on team accounts so that they save pretty much in what's secret mode here. So see, I can change this and click on secret. And now there's also public. So those are super easy and that's publicly searchable, but we don't want any of that stuff in SAR. So normally we're going to want secret. So if I save this as secret, the URL looks the same, but if you ask a member of the public type that in, you're going to get an error code. So the way I share that is I go in here and let's say you're coming to my search from another county. I have it secretly stored on my team account. I have to create what's called a shareable link for you. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click on this, and I have different choices of collaboration levels for you. So if I don't want you to mess up my map at all, and but I want you to, I want to share it with you. So you're the mayor or the police chief or something like that. I would probably create a read-only link so you can stay informed about what's going on with the search. If you're coming in as a searcher from another county, I want you to be able to record tracks on my map and add clues to my map and all those kinds of things. But I don't want you to delete assignments or change stuff that I put on the map, right? So in that case, I would generate what's called an update link. And so that link down here, which you see written out here, would allow any incoming searcher to click on it and they would be able to add things to the map in a positive way, but not delete things that are already on that map. And so another version of that is the QR code. I clicked, in case you missed that, there's a little QR symbol there. When you click on that, you get something that you could mount discreetly, let's say inside your command trailer or whatever, and incoming resources can scan it with their mobile app, and then the app will open up that particular map, and then you can start recording data in update mode to that map. Does that all make sense to people?
What did you click on?
What's that?
What did you click on to get to that?
Oh, to get see this little thing that looks
Box.
like a QR code here?
The box.
Yeah, the little box here. If you click on
No,
that,
what'd you click to get into that whole menu box?
oh, okay, sorry. All right, let me back up. So this information button here, I, that gives you your map name and details and descriptions and things. And then down here is where I create more links. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yep. So now I can say same thing. Similarly, you guys are coming in to help on overhead in my county, let's say. So I'm going to like, you're not part of my team, so you can't access my maps, but I want you to be able to write assignments and edit the assignments that are already written and that sort of thing. So I'm going to create a different type of shareable link here called write. And so that lets you add things, delete things, change things. I don't want to give that to field searchers because out of 150 people, someone's going to start messing up the map potentially. But for the 3 or 4 people working in overhead, I'm going to let you have more extensive rights to change things on here. So same process. You can click on this to open it in a desktop browser because you're helping me with overhead. Or if you were out in the field, you once again you could click on the little barcode thing, and then you would have a higher level, which I'll show you. See, it says right now. It gives you a higher level permission on that map. So this collaboration thing is really important. There's another one I don't want to spend a lot of time on called an event. An event is useful where you have like firefighters who maybe don't have that account, or police officers or deputies, and they don't use Caltopo, and you essentially set up an event where they can join it without having an account. And it just makes it's kind of cumbersome to set up. You have to be an administrator of the account. And then once you set up that event, it makes it real easy for people to temporarily join that map. So let's say I have sending a deputy out to do evacuations and I want them to record a track for me. I can do just-in-time training and get them set up to do that. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? Okay. All right. So there we go. So that's collaboration. It's a little complicated. And I'm going to come back to this a little bit later. You'll see there's another box in the same dialog saying update this map's default display to use the currently selected set of layers. Lots of words there. But what that really means is when I'm building a search map, either for mobile or desktop, I'm spending a lot of time thinking about layers, which I'm going to talk about quite a bit in a minute. And once I've found the right or best layers that I think are usable on that search, if I check that box, it's going to make those the default layers for anybody that opens this map up. And so that can be really good because sometimes it happens all the time. I'll go on a mutual aid search, I'll open up the map, and instead of opening it up to what the planner intended, it might open up to whatever I used last time I opened my browser for layers because that's not stored with the map unless you check that box. And I can change those layers as much as I want, and it doesn't affect anyone else's view. But that one checkbox makes sure that everyone on the search, the first time they open that map, sees what I intend them to see in terms of map layers. And then they have rights to do whatever they want after. They can change it to a different one if they like. But at least I give them a good fighting chance of starting with a good set of map layers. So we'll touch on that again a little bit later. All right, next thing is moving around for new people. You'll see I have a little hand on the map here. I'm right down by the red dot. If I left click, I can drag the map center around. So that's super handy. And same thing with zooming in and out. I can use a plus and a minus up here in the upper left. I can zoom out, I can zoom in. On a trackpad, like a laptop, I can spread 2 fingers apart and it'll zoom out and whoa, sorry about that. Um, And you can zoom in and out the same way with a scrolling wheel on a mouse, for instance. So, zooming in and out and moving's pretty easily. Another thing worth noting is as I start to put things on my map over on the left-hand column, I can click on any of those things and it'll center the map on that location automatically. So if you get lost like I just did a second ago, I'm way off the map here. I just go over and say, uh-oh, click on that, and I'm centered again. So moving around and recentering and centering on a certain object is pretty simple and straightforward, pretty easy to use. And here's what I want to kind of focus on next, and that is map layers, because I think it's something that it's really important for people to understand the power of these layers in here. In the olden days, we used Terrain Navigator Pro, which kind of had one or two or three layers, and you kind of worked with whatever you got there. The beauty of Caltopo is you can have an unlimited number of layers, millions of layers if you want. And so it's really a powerful way to run your search and think about how to appropriately use the right layers for the right job. So um, I'm going to start by kind of going through these and highlighting the importance of some of them. And one of the things that's been controversial recently, and I'm sure there's opinions in your room for people that are use it, is that this map layer list is now customizable by the user. And one of the problems is it's not customizable by your account name, it's customizable by the browser you're on, just like settings is. So if you get a new computer or you use someone else's, you're going to go back to the old default list of layers. So that's a little, problematic at times. But essentially, you'll see this little gear at the top here. And if you click on that gear, it's going to give you a list of all the layers that it knows about, whether they're from your own team or provided by Caltopo or whatever. And you work down your way down the list and you say, these are the layers that I want to see available on my list of layers. So I don't have to go through 100 different layers, let's say, right? So I'm kind of working my way down. Let me just click on a couple more. I've got my Google ones, my Fire layers. And I'm just selecting these so that these will appear on my short list of layers that I like to see. So I'm checking some more boxes like I'm setting this up the first time. Actually, I'm missing a few that I want to talk about today here. So this is not my normal SAR computer, and so forth and so on. And then when you're all done selecting the layers that you want to see in your default view, you hit the back button. And one of the things that's a little confusing for people that aren't super experienced in Caltopo is that, your whole interface fits on one screen here and it's very compact. So by default, a lot of things are kind of hidden and you have to kind of, spend some time learning how they work and so forth. And this default layer list is kind of one of those things. So let's say now I've got my layers all set up. I want to talk about ones that are important for what we do in our daily SAR job. So at the very top, you're going to see things like topos and such. The first two are very useful, and those are created by Matt Jacobs, actually, and his team. And the first one's called Topo. It used to be called Map Builder Topo. But essentially, what he's done is he's taken all the open source information that's out there from OpenStreetMap and various places like that, LiDAR data, contour lines data sets, and he's combined it all into an auto-generated, topo map, essentially. Building footprints in this case, you can see down there too. So that's a really good product. And for many searches, that'll be your very best map, and that's kind of the default map when you open it up. He has a slightly different version here called Hybrid, which kind of looks the same when I just turn it on there. But the difference is this is photorealistic. As I zoom in and I keep zooming, pretty soon I'm going to see subtle trees, actual real trees in high resolution. Let me move down by the lake here. And I can probably see buildings down there where let me go back to that little place here where there were buildings. So what's cool is that it's a topo map, but it's photorealistic when you zoom in. You can see cars in the parking lot right here if you look carefully and stuff. So I like to use that one a lot. It's super nice. And as I move down through the list, global imagery, um, with a team account, you have access to all the Google Map layers as well, but and those are the best high resolution imagery there is typically. But due to licensing restrictions, you cannot print Google Map layers inside a Caltopo map. So if you're printing, you need to use the imagery one, which has recently gotten much better. They invested a bunch of money in getting higher quality imagery. But if I go to this imagery layer and I work my way down here to where I see Google Maps and Google Hybrid, just like you would on Google, you can see that's a higher quality image, right? So I still use when I'm doing planning and things like that, or during operations on a search, I still tend to use Google Hybrid a lot because it's very high resolution. And feel free to jump in anytime you have a question. This roads layer is also open sourced. We use this a lot in fires and in dementia searches because what you're really interested in is road networks and covering roads and houses and things. And so this one, as you zoom out, gives you a nice 2D roads map that's very simple, but I can follow it pretty easily. And then as I zoom in, these roads don't have names, but eventually it will turn into actually, if I zoom out the other way, and eventually it'll turn into a single line map at a certain point, which is also pretty easy to follow. So it's just a good simple map layer that's auto-generated by Caltopo. Next up, you guys are all familiar with scan topos. Those were great in the 50s and 60s. The geodetic surveys removed a lot of hidden stuff that they don't want people going to off of these maps and Forest Service maps. And a lot of the trails don't exist anymore, and there are a lot of trails that are missing. But it's another, arrow in your quiver, kind of when you're up in the mountains and trying to run a search. I always go through this layer to see if there's something I'm missing or, whatever. Forest Service, where Forest Service is available, is fantastic, and I'm sure it's the same up there on many of our, Forest Service area searches. Everyone talks, and you guys live in those kind of counties where you have lots of Forest Service roads, I'm sure. So having a map that has the names of the Forest Service roads is really important. And for people like us who live outside of Forest Service area, you don't fully appreciate it until you go to a mutual aid search where everyone's talking in Forest Service road lingo. So having that map is great, and it comes in a very important version. Oops, I apologize for that. In white mode too, because I'm going to show you the next most important thing, and this is maybe the most important layer in all of Caltopo, and a lot of people don't really know its power and how to use it now. So, and that is shaded relief, and it got moved to its own area here. So one of the cool things, if you haven't used this a lot, is when I pick a layer like Forest Service White 2016, I get a nice flat map with contours on it. One of the things I can do is use this shaded relief. If I turn it up to 100, I just get a LiDAR view, and LiDAR is a satellite and airplane imaging system that can create extremely high resolution images of the ground and essentially see through the trees, which are mostly water. And so what you get is actual on the ground, um, items, right? So what's amazing on this is the resolution's so good now. You can find wagon trail ruts from the 1800s. You can find ancient civilizations if you're in the right place. And it's all done by seeing through the trees and everything else. So this thing, I cannot tell you how many searches have been resolved because we were able to access information in this layer that is not otherwise visible. So, this is probably not a great area, but as you zoom in, I can start to see, okay, this is probably an actual road, and I can kind of scroll back because I'm blending these together and I can see it's an actual road. But I can see drainages here, which are really important for me to search. And I can probably see old cuts and things that are out there. And so that becomes a great tool. And sometimes on a search, I'll get one of the overhead people to say, like, you know what? Can you go through our whole search area and using like a black line, can you highlight all the things that look like trails or social trails or animal trails or whatever on this map that don't show up on any other map and call that a LiDAR trails folder or something. And that can be really useful because a lot of times when you don't find people on their trail system, it's because they got lost and they ended up on a deer trail somewhere or something like that. So this layer right here can help you in more ways than you can ever imagine. And so by using this blending thing, I can also do something else cool. So I'm back to zero blend here. And if I bring this up to like 30% or 35%, all of a sudden now I get a nice 3D map view from a layer that didn't have any 3D to it at all other than contour lines. So like this gives me a much better visualization of what's going around Lake Alpine than by just looking at a flat contour line. I know I can read this and figure it out, but this is instantaneous. So, if I'm doing a general briefing on a big monitor or something, I'll usually blend up something like this, and then that'll be the basis of my presentation. And then if I was giving you a search plan and you're coming into my mutual aid search, I'd go over and click on this eye again, and I'm like, this is the perfect combo platter of map layers. So I'm going to click on update this map's default display to use the currently selected set of layers, hit OK. And now if I reload this map like I'm a new person, it comes up with those map layers automatically. And then when you open your mobile app, you're going to see the same thing here. So that's a super powerful tool in and of itself. And okay, so blending is great. You can also blend other things like, let me go back to Forest Service 2016. I'll turn off shaded relief, and you can see up here I can add additional base layers. So if I click on that, I could pick something like imagery, satellite imagery. And, if I'm writing a search plan for this area and I'm like, all right, I'm zooming in. All right, this is where they went missing. What does it really look like there? I can just slide this over and say like, oh, okay, here's the peninsula. It looks pretty open. I can get a bunch of intel from that when I'm drawing my search plan, and I can blend multiple layers here, and I can leave them, partially blended or whatever. One of the interesting uses in our coastal area here is that the maps, like Point Reyes National Seashore, which is a big search area for us nearby, the sandbars shift all the time. And sometimes the newest satellite imagery looks way different than the map. So sometimes we have to draw our own maps from recent satellite imagery to get the shoreline to look like it really does. So there are lots of uses for blending those layers together. And I want to talk a little bit about some more. We have TF Outdoors. That one's really nice. It's just a basic map. It's good for travel maps and things. But if you were at a ski resort, it actually is one of the better ones because it has all the ski runs. Here's a great example. It'll usually have them color coded and labeled completely. So, if you have a missing skier type situation, this can be a pretty handy map layer to use. And that's probably its most valuable use, in my opinion. OpenStreetMap, I'm sure most of you are aware of. It's really great. We use that a lot for, say, dementia searches in the urban, suburban, rural interface, let's say, sometimes for fire evacuations. A lot of times it'll show nice building details and footprints. There are other ways to show those, which I'll mention in a minute, but it can be a pretty handy map too. So moving right along, obviously Google Maps. One thing I want to highlight, for those that don't know it, is it has the little man down in the lower right-hand corner. And the little man gives you street view anytime you want inside of Caltopo, which is super cool. So what I'll do is I'll go in here, I'll drag it down, and I'll drop my little man there, and all of a sudden I get a street view, and I get a much better feel for what's going on in the terrain here when I can go in and out of Street View within Caltopo. And sadly, like on things like possible abduction searches and things like that, it can be really handy just to zoom along the road and say, search this pullout, search this pullout, search this pullout, and things like that. So remembering that that's there is great. You can also tell, like someone goes missing in a very rural area, what do the driveways look like? Are the driveways gated? Are they long? Are they easy to see? Would someone take that turn? That kind of stuff. So I use Google Maps for that all the time within Caltopo. I'll use the hybrid mode, which also has the same little man access. And then so does the regular just Google satellite. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. Some other new ones, Mapbox satellite. That's just another available satellite layer. Moving right along. I use these a lot, actual. These are historic topo maps. And in gold country, these are pretty useful sometimes because you can find all the old abandoned mines and mine shafts up in the mountains. I don't know if you have similar uses up in Oregon, but in gold country, it can be great when we have someone that disappears in an old mining area because the old buildings are here, the old mine shafts are there and stuff. And the government consciously removes that stuff from newer maps because they don't want people going into those areas. So even though it looks like it might not be that useful, it can be super useful. Next thing I want to talk about is live imagery. So you can see here, this is called Sentinel. It's updated weekly and is fairly high resolution. So if I go back to my Lake Alpine, oh, that was a poor choice. Let me just go, I'm going to go right here, San Francisco. Let's see if we get any. There we go. So, this is obviously a cloudy day or whatever, but I can also go in here and say, um, I'm sorry, 1 second. Let me get back to that. Sentinel Weekly, you'll see that it has date ranges that you can select here under latest. So I can go down here and say like, okay, let me go back last week when it was clear. And I can see, pretty high resolution here. There's downtown San Francisco, right? It's not bad. Like, and what is this useful for? It's great for snow layers and things. Like, what is our search area looking like? How high is the snow? If I go to, let's say Mount Hood, let's see what that does. All right, and I zoom out. I have like a real-time snow level on Mount Hood. That's pretty useful. And this is a good time to mention something else, which is about a year old now, which is 3D. So you see over on my left-hand column, if I press 3D, all of a sudden I'm going to get new map controls. And it's basically left and right and up and down with the shift button. And then I can go in here and I can zoom in and I can have my whole search plan written and I can see all the search items and things. And I could rotate around the mountain here and I could see my assignments superimposed on here. And I can see the whole, real-time photo essentially of Mount Hood and what the snow levels are. So again, it can be a really powerful visualization tool when you're writing a search plan. Let's say in this canyon, you're going to get a good feel for where it turns nasty and deep ice and snow and ice, and where it's kind of okay, and all those kinds of things. So I find that to be a very useful tool. And 3D works on all layers, by the way. So I could switch this to something like Map Builder Hybrid, and you see that I get the same like very nice high resolution 3D stuff here. And again, I know I'm spending a lot of time on layers, but I think it's really important because one of the things when I work with people that I see the most is that they don't make the most of all this information that's here when they're trying to build a search plan because there's so much more. Going further down, you'll see things like Go as Live, and that is really for fires and things, honestly, or seeing a storm coming in. So I'm right over Mount Hood, and you can see there's a timestamp on this. This image was taken 8 minutes ago. So I have live satellite imagery. If I've got a storm coming into my search area, it's all here. I don't have to look at the weather forecast. I can see the storm coming in on Caltopo. So that can be quite useful too. All right, moving right along. GOAS heat is the next one I want to mention. Temperature. It's not going to show anything here, but I can tell you during fires, it gives you the most real-time visualization of the heat map of your fire. So much better than some of the other satellite tools for fire. You can actually see the flame front and such moving in here even though it's just reds and blues and things like that. It's a really powerful tool. Again, most people don't know about that. Finally, you can do your own personal layers in here. And I won't spend a lot of time, but I'll have team layers. Like here's my Marin SAR team layers. Those are typically county maps or special maps that we have for our area, and they're all hosted on our team account. So that works really quite well for us. But one of the things I want to do now is go back and give you one of the asks was, how do I create my own map layers in here? Well, there's a thing called map sheets for people that haven't used them. And if I go back to, let's say Mount Hood, here I am at Mount Hood, and since anyone can add map sheets to the Caltopo public repository, there's probably, I don't know, 50,000 of them or something. So I don't want to see a list of 50,000 maps. So what this little map sheet box does is it only shows you see the seven, and only shows you the seven map sheets that are applicable to the current map view. So if I click on this right now, people have shared these map layers with Caltopo, and this one's a low res one, but a bunch of different maps are available here. And map sheets are really intended to be used on kind of a smaller scale. They'll typically be like a county park, or something that's not gigantic, like the Google Maps or whatever that goes over your whole state. So these tend to be smaller regions, but they're really great because you can create them yourself. You can store them in your own personal account, or you can put them on your team account. So if I'm going to do another example here with the map that you guys provided, and let me make sure I didn't screw that up. 1 second. So here we are, Langdon Lake. I have not been to Langdon Lake, but the map I was provided with is kind of the ski areas out, or snowmobiling areas out here. And so right now I don't have a lot of great information here. There's 9 map sheets that are in here, so maybe some of these are like okay, but no, that's pretty low resolution. I don't like that. So I've got this situation. That one's not too bad. But I have this map that has been provided that we would like to add to, let's say, our search plan here. So I'm going to turn these off and take a deep breath, and I'm going to show you how to create your own map sheet. So first thing you have to do is save something. So I'm going to go down here and say, I'm going to put a marker here. So just right click, marker, I'll call it Langdon Lake, and then I will save this map. You can see it prompts me with the little green square there to save my map. Oh, I'm not signed in. And let me sign in on this one again. That's another good thing to do. And then I'm saving this. I'll call it Langdon. And then I'm going to add a map sheet for the case study that was given to me. So let me open that up, and I'm going to share that briefly with you. I'm going to switch sharing screens for a second and to show you what I'm starting with. So when I go back to screen sharing, I'm going to click on that. Where is it? Share. There we go. So Langdon, I want, where is it? That's Cal. Oh, here it is. Okay, so now you should see a simple PDF map, right? And I want to add this to my Caltopo account, and I could add it then to my team account as well if I wanted to, and be a permanent map for my county, let's say, tollgatetrailfinders.org. Okay, so this looks great. So what I need to do is figure out, since this map doesn't have geo-referencing points inside it, it's just a plain old PDF, I got to manually figure out how to fit that into Caltopo and line it all up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look for a couple of landmarks that are easy to find, and road junctions are usually pretty good for that. So right here around Langdon Lake, you can actually see where the clubhouse is. There's an arrow here, but there's a road that has, say, a junction right here. That's probably something that I can find pretty easily on a Caltopo map. And I need 2 points of reference, and ideally they're kind of far apart because the closer they are, the more the errors would extrapolate. So I'm going to find another point here that's kind of far away up here. I saw another lake up here when I looked at this. I hope this all works because I didn't actually do it all. All right, so here's Jubilee Lake, and you can also see there's a road coming into the boat launch here, and there's another little junction. So now I have like 2 places. If I geo-reference those, then I can probably pretty easily, get this thing to line up. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back to my main map now. Just give me a second to switch. And I'm going to go to Caltopo. Where is it? There we go. Share. So now we're back on our main map that I just saved, which has one data point on it. And I'm going to go over here to the add button in the upper left corner, and I'm going to add a map sheet. So if I go down this list, you can see map sheet, third from the bottom, and I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to call this, what was it, TTF or something like that? TTF. We'll just call it that for fun. So I have to give it a name, and then I choose the file with the PDF. And so I'm going to go to my desktop in this folder. There's the TTF map, and I'm going to open it up. And I'm not going to share it publicly, but I could if I did. And then it won't automatically share. The people at Caltopo will review it to make sure it's accurate and it's appropriate. And then they'll authorize it to be a public map. But we don't want that anyway. So I'm going to hit add, and it's going to upload it to the server. I don't know if you can see that dialog box or not. Does that show up for you guys? Yep. Okay, good. All right. So some boxes don't show up for some reason on Zoom, but anyway, it's going to upload. It takes like a few seconds, and I think we'll do a break after I finish this one. Does that sound good? Okay. And this, you may not see this. It says unable to locate georeferencing information. You'll need to align this layer by hand. And then I hit OK. All right, so now what I have here is this general area. I'm going to zoom out just a little because I kind of know where the PDF region is. It's kind of here. And you can see it just kind of blurts, it just throws the map on there in a random place, basically. So I have a slider down here, just like I did on the other map slider, and I can make the PDF appear and disappear. And then what I need to do now is I need to go in and find one of those two reference points I want to use. So I'm zooming in. I'm going to use this Langdon Lake Road where it's coming in here and just this little split right there. See that? So what I'm going to do is my little hand is over that junction. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say mark point one. So the PDF, I'm selecting point one on the PDF. Then I'm going to have to go down and mark the lat long for point one on the other map. So if that makes sense, just bear with me. I'll show you. So I'm marking point one on that junction. Okay, so now it's kind of wigs out for a second, and I zoom back out of that view, and now I have to find Langdon Lake again. And here's the road coming in. Actually, it looks a little different than it did on the PDF, but I think it might be this split here, let's say. So I'm going to put my hand over that, right click, and I'm going to mark lat long point one. And now those should be anchored together. And it might, is that the right junction? Let's see. That's Langdon Lake. Let me just give me a second here. Campground down there. All right, it's going to be pretty close, let's say. Then I have to find my second point. So I had that other lake up there called, yeah, there it is, Jubilee Lake. Okay, so there's the campground for Jubilee Lake. So I can actually go, there's that split in the road by the campground. So I'm going to mark lat long 2. I can do these in different orders. So mark lat long 2. And then I'm going to turn this on and find Jubilee Lake. It may be in some wonky place right now because I haven't aligned it. So now I got to go up here and find Jubilee Lake, which I think is, there it is. All right. Even though it's sideways, there's the split in the road going to the campsite. And I right click and say mark point two. Now it's going to hopefully spin around and be calibrated now, roughly. So now if I kind of zoom in, I haven't committed to this. I can turn off the shading here and turn on the shading. So now I can go up to Langdon Lake, let's say, Langdon Lake, sorry. And if I zoom in, I can hopefully these two will line up kind of. And they don't exactly because I picked the wrong road, I think, on this side. So okay, so here's a better point. See Langdon on the upper northeast side. I've got another road junction. Let me see if that is findable here. Looks a little bit different, but let's call, I think it's that junction probably. Just trying to find like a good landmark here. And then it splits three ways. Let's see, there's a crossroad. Yeah, so I'm going to go to that junction right here. I'm going to mark that as lat long 1. So sometimes you have to iterate a little bit. And then I'm going to go up here, north side of Langdon Lake, and that junction here, mark point 1. All right, so now this has moved a little bit, and hopefully I'm more, a little closer to being lined up. Where's my lake here? And now if I go back and forth, it's still not right. That's weird. All right, this is embarrassing, Rich, but it's a little bit off still. All right, I'm going to do the western tip of the lake then. Okay, so I'm going to do mark lat long 1, and then I'm going to go to the western side of the lake here. That's it right there. What's that?
Here, it doesn't line up.
I know it's kind of a okay. It usually works pretty well. So let me zoom out again.
It's the scaling when they don't.
Oh, there we go. So that one's lined up now. See? Okay. So here we go. Hopefully the scaling's that's one risk is sometimes the scales aren't great. So there's the lake. See it lines up perfectly now. And I can go up to my other reference point, which was Jubilee Lake, and let's see if we're still lined up there. Yep, see that? Looks perfect. All right, so now I can see in between I have a road there. And let me zoom in and out on the road. Yep, that lines up great. See that? So let's say I'm happy, if I were going to publish this map officially, I'd probably do it a couple more times to make sure it's super dialed. And then I'm going to hit save. And when I hit save, it goes through a process that takes like up to 5 minutes maybe. So what do you think we take a 5 minute break, you guys? You want to do that? And then we'll resume at 11:10. How's that? And then when we get back, this thing should be all ready to go. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, see, I did it earlier, and I tried to reel it out.
You just read it at point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it came up. Yeah, then it'll come up. Some little later.
I got a little cheap on this, yeah, but.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah. When I feel that does talk.
We've done.
Yeah. Oh, that's more. I'm sure we'll get some. But we can have the name of
Okay, so let me go in now and share the finished result just to show you how that works. I'm going to share my Chrome. There we go. All right, so now here's my map after it finished processing. You'll see over on the left-hand column now I have a thing called Map Sheet. If I click on the little pencil, which lets me edit the name, I could change it to, snowmobile or whatever. And you can see I can save it to my account, which I'm not going to do, but I could save it to my account. And once I save it to my account, then I could move it from my personal account over to my team account. And then everyone on my team would see it show up in their list of map sheets. So super handy feature. And now I just turned it on by clicking on it. And you can see on the right now I have this slider for TTF. And I can put I can use that as my main search map if I want, and I can zoom out, you can see the whole coverage of it. Super handy. If it's something that would be useful long term for my team, I would move it over to the team account and let it reside there. If it's just a one-off for the search, then I would leave it here. Kind of an anecdote, we had a search in California here, which was a really difficult one for a missing child, and it was way up in the mountains, and there were no maps of the actual roads up there. But Child Protective Services had actually created a map at one point of that area as a condition for placing the child in that home. And I said, like, man, can you get me a copy of that? And it was a black and white drawing, not perfect scale. And I was able to put it in, and that became like our main search map and transportation map for that search. You would never publish it, of course, but it was extremely valuable for that night. The other thing you'll notice is that as you start a search and you have undocumented roads, then you start getting UTVs and stuff driving up and down the roads, and you can start to see where those roads really are on the map. But anyway, so that's how you do sheets. Super easy. They're sort of a different product, but you can overlay them on top and stuff. The last thing I want to talk about on the layer side are overlays. Okay. So we're up in this area, your neighborhood, kind of. I'm going to talk about the different overlays. And first of all, over on the right-hand side, you'll see letters in boxes like HIRU. Those are actually keyboard shortcuts, which are super useful, especially if you're an active planner. So I can hit the C button, and it's going to turn on contour lines in my map. I already have them, so it's kind of redundant. Or I can hit S for slope angle shading, which I'll talk about in a minute. Map Builder overlay features, and so that's all of the open map databases. Sometimes a lot of trails will appear as overlays that don't appear on your base map layer. So that can be really handy. And you can just toggle them on and off super easily like that. So let's talk about those particular overlays really quickly. Contours are really only useful if you have something that doesn't have them already. So like, let me go to Google Satellite. Okay, so I'm on Google Satellite. I'm zooming in on some area here, which is up where we were just talking about. And I can say, wow, how steep is that? I can hit the C button, and I can see contour lines, and I can also change them if I want to different resolutions of contour lines. And I can just toggle them on and off when I want to see it. So it's super handy. The next one is the most valuable Alpine tool we have, and it's the thing where that is not used in many searches and causes really poor map segments to be drawn. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But slope angle shading is your friend. I don't want to send people into purple or black areas without ropes and everything. And that if I give them ropes and rope gear, they're going to be very slow. So when I'm thinking about drawing segments, I've got to think about the hazards and the country I'm putting people into. And the quickest way to visualize that is with slope angle shading. With most of these overlays, when you click them on, at the bottom of the screen, you'll get a scale. So like yellow is 27 to 29 degrees, also useful for figuring out where the avalanche cutoffs are and so forth. And when I get up to the right, as it gets more purple, blue, and then black, anything above 60 degrees is black. So your cliffs kind of pop out here. And this is a super, as I said twice already, super valuable tool. And it's the one that is the most underutilized by planners, I think. So in alpine environments, you should never write a plan without toggling this on and off constantly. Moving right along, Map Builder Overlay, as I mentioned, is super handy. I'm on a satellite map, but now I can see all the roads superimposed. I can see the water features. I can see dry creeks and wet creeks. All that kind of stuff pops in there. Recreation map, I don't use a lot. That's ski resorts and things. And then this next one's important. Let me go to a town. What's a good town up in your neighborhood? Somebody? Like 1,000 people or something?
Elgin.
What's that?
Elgin. EL.
Eldon? Is that right? Eldon?
There it is.
Oh, yeah. I'm in Eldon, Oregon. There we go. Okay. So what's great about this is if I go back to
You said.
like, okay, I'm on Google Satellite. Let's say we had a fire going in this area, right? And we're going to have to evacuate people. So one of the things, and this tool is in here exactly because of fires. And so what you're going to see in here now, down here, are two things that are really useful, also for dementia searches and things, parcel data and, um, oh, where's the other one? Structures. Where? Oh, you know what? I didn't have it selected. This, I haven't been using this browser for this. So let me go down here and find parcel data. Where's that at? Shaded relief. There we go. MVUM is good. Parcel data. I'm getting close here, I think. Fire history, activity, aircraft, structures. There we go. All right, cell coverage. All right, sorry, I should have pre-configured this map before we got there. So if I go down here, I have parcel data turned on now. As I zoom in, I can see, depending on the state, I can see addresses, which you can see here. I can see, if I do map builder overlay, I can see all the street names too, which is cool. East Newton Street, number 607. And then I can see who owns the house. Enlows, Sullins, Wilsons, Crockett, so forth. So that can be really handy during evacuation. It's not foolproof, but it's a good starting point. But more importantly, if I'm evacuating this town door to door, let's say, I might have some rules of thumb, which I'll talk about later, but it depends on how many doors you have to knock on and things like that. So one of the things I can do is start using what's called a measurement tool. And so over here on the left, you're going to see this thing, this ruler that's a box here, and it gives you a whole bunch of options. So it's going to show you things like distance, bearing, profile of the terrain, and so forth. But down at the bottom, it'll give me parcel counts and structure counts. So in this case, I'm interested on how many doors I have to knock on. And let me turn off Snap 2 because I'm going to talk about that later. But let's say this triangular neighborhood, I can go click, 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 double click, and then a dialog box pops up, which I don't think you can see, that says this has 102 known structures in it. So it's a really quick way to understand how many structures you're going to have to deal with in an evacuation situation, or if you're doing door-to-door canvassing for a missing person or something like that and doing interviews, let's say. And so if you're on a map layer that doesn't even show that stuff, like let me go to, let me go up here and say like, scan topos. Okay. So it shows some structures and things, but it may not show all of them. And out in the country, you often don't see any of them. So I can go down here and say structures. That's an overlay as well. I can turn that on. And this is all AI generated from satellite data. But now you can see every building footprint in the area, even if my map layer doesn't show any of those. So as I toggle that on and off, you can see all your structures appearing there. And those are the structures that that measuring tool counts. So if that makes sense, that's super useful. And another valuable use for parcel data here is what's special about a parcel boundary. Well, you know when it's private property or not, but it also represents fence lines in a lot of cases. So, for instance, in dementia cases, a lot of times in these like 1 to 5 acre parcel areas, I'm like, dementia people tend to stop when they hit a fence line or a barrier. So you can run the fences on your search assignments, and sometimes you will get lucky that way. So parcel data has a lot of different uses. I can work my way down public lands. You can figure out jurisdiction on your search, which is a big issue where we live. Is it federal? Is it state? Is it county? Whatever. Is it private property? Wind plots are great. I can turn that on and it will, let me get a little more basic map on here, like OpenStreetMap. And you can see the arrows and you can run, speed, wind speed or gust, and you can do it by time here, like up to 36 hours in the future. How is this useful? It's great for running canines, right? If you're going to send dogs out in the morning, where's the prevailing wind? How heavy is it going to be? It might impact the way you deploy dogs. So again, another really helpful tool. Another one that's invaluable is aircraft. I usually choose a subset of like helicopters if we're using helicopters. So we may be deploying people in the field. We can see where those are. And we can also see rescue helicopters coming in and configuring for for a pickoff or something like that. So, um, and it's really great because this works on the mobile app. So if I've got a patient packaged in a litter and I'm wondering where the helicopter is, I can see them flying in on the map in real time. The first time we did this on a search when the mobile app came out, I thought I was watching like FBI or CSI New York or something like that because it just seems so space age that I could see the rescue helicopter coming in to get our patient in real time on our search map, you know. So it's a great tool. Fire history is great. And I'm going to talk about that later. Fire activity live in real time, which is super great. And there's different versions of that, which I'll mention briefly later, and so forth. Cell coverage, another one that's great because cell coverage is sketchy. So I know I spent a lot of time on layers, but it's really important. And if you're, and it's, the most, it's the tool that gets underutilized the most, I think. So any questions, comments? All good? Okay. So let me run through objects real quick. Um, Map objects. So there are different ways you can add objects to your map. You can start by hitting the add button and you'll get a menu that shows you all the objects, and you want to make sure you're in SAR mode that you see all of the SAR objects as well, and which I don't see right now. So am I in recreation mode here? So let's go into SAR mode. Oops. Let's make sure that's there. Okay. Reload and I may have to fix this map. Let me see. Oh yeah, see that map got created in recreation mode by accident. So I'm going to change it back to SAR mode and save it. So I did that via this little I menu here again. So let me change it into SAR mode. And I'm also going to say like, oh, this is my favorite map layer for this. And I'm going to save that. So now I'm creating my search map. So here we go. We're up in some wilderness area, let's say. Probably not wilderness, but a very remote area. And I'm going to start adding objects. So the first one obviously is a marker. We can add a marker. If I do it via that menu, it will add the marker in the dead center of the screen. I can actually go over and move it right now if I want. See that? I can grab it and drag it around if I want. Or I can type in, if it was a clue that was radioed in, I can type in the lat long or whatever I want for that particular map point as well. So before I save it, you'll see there's a little edit button here. That lets me, let me say I found a shoe. Okay. So that shoe is an important clue. It's a size 10 Nike or whatever. Now I can go in here and change the type of marker that it is. So I'm going to click on this and I get this giant menu here. And so it is broken up by types of markers, but there are many, many choices and sizes. So in this case, I'm going to go down to the ICS grouping here, and we use question mark for clue typically because that's the ICS marker for that. If I click on that, it changes this upper left to a question mark, which is what I want. If I forget what these are called, I can click on show titles over here on the right, and it'll give me a list in this format. I'm like, oh, that's a clue. There we go. That's the right choice. And then I could say, oh, I actually want it bigger because it's a big clue and I want everyone to see it. So I hit apply and then I hit save. And now that clue is on my map. And by default, each marker I put on the map goes into an auto-generated folder called markers. As I'll get into later, that gets very burdensome after a while because everything ends up in that folder and you can't organize it. So we have to address that. All right, so that's a marker. I can edit it. If I don't like where it is, I can left click on it, hit edit, and I can move it to a different spot and save it again. And the other cool thing, and this has only been around about 2 months. If I click on that, any object on the map now, and you may have to have certain rights or whatever, but down here it'll say created by whoever and updated by whoever. So if you've been on big searches, there's all kinds of clues and maps and on the map photos, junk like that. In the old days, we could never figure out who put it on there if they didn't put their name on it. So what this uses is your name that you use when you sign up for your Caltopo account, and it will show up here. So I'm like, oh my God, that was, Jim Smith found this shoe out there. I got to give him a call and find out more about it. So that is now information that's available directly in Caltopo, which is fabulous. Okay, moving right along. Obviously, the next one would be a line. Easy to draw a line. I'm going to go click, 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 click. When I'm done, I double click. Pretty straightforward. Next one is a buffer. So far, these are just geometric shapes. A buffer is essentially a fat line, and we use that for pretty much all of our assignments now. We don't really use lines anymore. We use either area assignments or we use buffer assignments. And to do that, you set a radius, and I'm going to say 50 feet. That's a good size for most SAR stuff. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go, we're searching this highway. So I'm going click, click, click down the highway and double click to finish it. And then if I zoom in, because I'm way zoomed out, you're going to see it looks different than this other one. This is just this thin line, which is hard to see sometimes on the map. Over here, I have a thick line, which is easy to see. So buffers are good, and it also encourages people not just to walk center file down a trail, but to kind of, the goal is you're searching both sides of the trail kind of thing. So that's another thing, and those fall into lines and polygons folder automatically. So I'm going to keep moving along here. Area assignment, area would be next. We're not on assignments yet, but we're going to do polygon, which is area. So I'm just going to draw a box here. I know these aren't very good SAR shapes. When I get to the end, I double click and it saves it. I can go back and edit any of these shapes. I can see geometry on them, like here, a profile for that line I drew. So there's a lot of powerful tools that are hidden just below here that you can just click on and see profiles and vegetation types and all kinds of stuff like that. But in the most basic sense, I forgot to name this, so I'm going to say, oh, I better edit this and give it a name. I could say, oh, this is a swamp, don't go in there, and save it like that. And then the swamp label will show up on the object and it'll show up in the left-hand column as well. So I'm all good there. And moving right along, let's get into some SAR objects now. You can put range rings in the same way. Folders are very important. Folders, I'm going to put in here and I can say clues. And I have options for every folder I put in. Folder objects will be visible on page load. Yeah, I kind of want my clues to show up, so I'm going to leave that checked. And I want labels on my clues to show up. But if this were my tracks dash operational period 1 folder, I don't want to see the label on every single track, let's say, because it clutters up my map. So I would uncheck that in that case. Hope that makes sense. And then in this case, I want to see all my clues. And now I have a folder which did not show up. Didn't I add that? There it is. Took a minute. Okay. And I have one clue up here called shoe. So I'm going to go over and edit the shoe. And I'm going to go down here and it says it's in the markers folder, but I want to move it to the clues folder. So I click that and I hit save. And now I'm starting to organize my data into more logical, folders. And then I can turn the clues off if I want by unchecking them. I can turn markers off by unchecking them. So this starts to give you an idea of how you can begin to organize data in a more efficient way. And I'll have a bunch of stuff on that a little bit later. Okay, so moving right along, let's get into SAR objects. One of the first things you're going to need in SAR is an operational period. Oh, I have to reload this map because how did this? Oh, I'm in the wrong state, huh? Okay, that's interesting. So let's go back here. And now I'm going to go in and add SAR objects. So down here, first thing I'm going to need is an operational period. I'm going to call it OP1 because my assignments are going to go into the operational period 1 folder like that. And I have analogs for all those shapes we just did. Like a line assignment is the same as a line, except it now has SAR attributes associated with it. Buffer assignment is a buffer with SAR attributes, and an area assignment is an area assignment with SAR attributes, is a polygon with SAR attributes. So let's just do a couple of examples. I'm going to go in here and create an assignment to search. Let's see if we have any drainages here or something like that. Actually, let me go to this is all right. I can do that. All right, so I have this creek that feeds into a lake here, it looks like, or out of the lake, one or the other, and we want to search the shoreline there. So I'm going to call that a buffer assignment. So I'm going to say add buffer assignment. Alternatively, I could say B on my keyboard and we get that same menu. But so now I'm going to do B for buffer. Oh, okay. I want to do a buffer assignment of 50 feet, and I'm going to do it along this creek. So I can go click, click, like this, all the way down to the water. And I did a crummy job of drawing it, but I roughed it in, and then I can go in and edit that object, and I can go in here and I can say, goes into my assignments folder. I'm going to put it in operational period 1, and I click on show additional fields, and all of a sudden I have everything that goes into the 104 form here. So we don't even print those anymore. That's one of the new changes in the last 2 months. I can say it's a high priority assignment. I want a high POD for a responsive subject. I can say we're going to use, um, no previous efforts. We're going to use, SARTac 1 channel or whatever. And I can put all that information here, and the search team can see that. Here's the problem though. I did a crummy job drawing that, and they're going to get all confused because I didn't follow the creek very well. So that's where I want to talk about snap to. I'm going to uncheck this assignment, which I'm going to, bear with me, I'm going to call it AA, assignment AA to start with. And I'm going to turn it off, and I think I did a poor job. So what I'm going to do is redraw that. I'm going to hit A, buffer assignment. I'll say 50 again. Only this time I'm going to use a feature called snap to. And what you'll see up here is that in the upper left corner, when I start to initiate an assignment drawing, you'll see snap to none appear up here in this case. If I tell it to snap to hydro features, I will be able to snap this assignment super easily to a feature, and I don't have to draw it, and it'll be way more accurate. I can also snap to pre-existing assignment lines or tracks, OpenStreetMap objects, Forest Service objects, MVUM objects. In this case, it's hydro. So when I turn that on, everything lights up in yellow that it recognizes as hydro. So I go down here and I'm like, okay, where's my creek that I want to search? I'm like, okay, Simon's gonna end up in the creek here. So I got to zoom in a little. Let me go over this way. And I want to search, and sometimes it won't match perfectly because the hydro layers are different between maps. I click at the beginning or the end of the assignment here, and I go up along this yellow thing. And every time I hit the yellow thing, I can anchor it, or I could get brave and go all the way. If I make a mistake like this, where I missed it, I hit escape, escape, and then I can keep going along this thing. Oh, I hit escape too many times. Let me start over. Sorry. Let me go all the way to the water here. Okay, so now I go up here, I click it once, and then I go up here and I click it again. So here's my creek assignment all the way up to here, and I double click to finish that assignment. So it draws that creek assignment in automatically, essentially. Let me delete this other one that I don't need. Um, and now I've got a nice clean snap to. And that's one of the things we taught about and teach a lot is that we want really clean snapped borders when we draw assignments. We want segments that snap together to each other. And that massively decreases confusion in the field where people can't figure out if their assignment is here or there, or if it's overlapping with another assignment, if that makes sense. So in this case, I'm going to go in here and edit this. I'm going to call it AB, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later. And then there's my 2 assignments. Here's another thing that is brand new. I don't know if you remember, but if you've used this much, operational periods determine the color of assignments. And we'll talk about this more in the next segment. But I can display this in the assignments folder by default, which is operational period, or I can choose by the pull down menu. I can say random colors, which is what I like to push. Those are 2 different colors, although it's a little hard to tell. But you can also go in here and change the colors of assignments now permanently so that they're random colors. So I'm going to click on a thing. I'm going to get into this later, but I'll just show you preview now. Bulk operations button at the bottom of assignments folder. I highlight these 2 like an Excel sheet, and there's a new feature called randomize colors. And this permanently changes the colors of these assignments. And so now when you're using the mobile app, everything's going to be randomized and I can see the borders between my assignments much more easily. So that's a really nice new feature and it's static. And these other display modes like random, like operational period or resource type or by status still work fine as well, independent of that. So this is a big enhancement for usability in the field, but I'll get into that a little bit later. All right, so moving right down the list, we're still going. And apologies for people that know all this stuff. And I hope the people who are kind of new to it are able to kind of keep up with this. So we're trying to keep it all together here as we move forward. So those are the main SAR objects, line assignment, buffer assignment. I can do an area assignment the same way. So let's say I'm searching along this creek and I want to do an area search in this marshy area. And this is not a professionally drawn one by any stretch, but I'm going to add an area assignment down here, or I can hit the letter A. See that? So I'm going to escape out of that. I hit the letter A, and now it gives me the chance to draw segment AC into this area of swamp, let's say. And this time, instead of snapping to hydro, I'm going to go up here and change it to snap to lines. And so now the objects I've already drawn on the map are highlighted as yellow. And I can go up here and say, all right, I want to hike, I want to make the western border the side of my buffer. And then I want to kind of just roughly click around this march, and let's say, and I'm going to do this quick just to make it time efficient. And let's say this was my assignment. I get all the way back and I join the end and I double click. And so now I'm going to go back to random display, random. And so now I have this blue assignment, AC, which is an area assignment adjacent to AB, and they share a common border, and it's a nice clean border that's not hand drawn and all sloppy, let's say. So using Snap 2 is really important. Using shortcuts is important because it's quick. Once you get the hang, if you do a lot of planning, I almost never use the menus. I do everything through shortcuts now. And I can start to draw my plan up like this. So moving right along, let's say this is my search plan. It's not a very good one. I need a command post. So I'm going to right click over here. The other way I can add objects. I could add a marker here and let's call it the command post. So I'm going to go in here and say ICP instead of command post. I can put the address in here. And then I want to use the command post symbol. So I'm going to click on this edit button and I'm going to go into my list of things. Oh, I can't remember what a command post symbol is. So I click show titles and there's incident command post. So I click on that. It shows up there. Looks great. I hit apply. I hit apply again. And there's my incident command post. So now I have my whole search plan ready to go, such as it is. And I want to print out a map for this search. So this is where we're going to digress a little bit and go into a different menu interface. So I've added my search plan. I can add a few other items. Oh, I want to talk about these first before I print my search plan out. So one thing that's very important is, and it's a little buried in here, is locator. See that? So locator lets you track live objects. And the most useful and often used one for us is SMS locator. So I have a missing person. I can put their phone number in here. And let's say I'm missing. Rich Shelton is missing. And I can put my phone number in here. And I can say, open this link to send us your location. And when I hit enter, Caltopo is going to send a text to my phone and it says, open this map, open this link up. And when I open it, it says, this is search and rescue and we're looking for you. And I press on that link and then it will locate me automatically on my search map. And if I move, it'll move with me. So great example is Yosemite National Park, which has around 250 rescues a year. A lot of them are now managed using that SMS locator on Caltopo because people are kind of panicked. I don't know where I am. I'm on the trail, send us your location. I don't know how to do that. So people just send them a phone number, SMS link from Caltopo, and they can be tracked that way. The other cool ones here are quite nice. You can live track Garmin inReaches if you have a professional account or a premium account, I think. You can live track APRS on ham radio. You can put a tail number in for an aircraft, like if you have a county helicopter that you like to track on here, and you can record their tracks. Another thing, and I'll show you a slide on it later, Fleet Sync Motorola Kenwood radios can be tracked in here and so forth. So there's a bunch of things you can track. And not to confuse you too much, if I go up to my name here and I'm an administrator for Marin's SAR account, if I click in there, you're going to get another menu, hopefully. Come on, Caltopo, don't crash now. There we go. Okay. So you're going to see a list with all of my team members and stuff. But at the top, you'll see a tab called Trackable Devices. And if I click on that, I have a list of inReach units that our team owns. If I had a county helicopter, I could put that in there. I could say I can add aircraft, I can add APRS devices and so forth. And then those all become usable inside your team account by simply going in at the bottom and see the shared locations. If I click shared locations and all out of my map layer list, any device and any person who's sharing their location via the mobile app who's on my team or any of those devices that are registered my team will appear live on the map. I know that's a lot of information, but it works really well. And once you have it set up, it's pretty straightforward. So anyway, the locator thing is important. That's the key thing out of this. And the SMS thing is quite handy. It doesn't always work. Sometimes the person's phone's not working, but if you get that crazy, kind of nervous person that doesn't know what to do, say, look, I'm going to send you a text. Just click on it, allow it to tell me where you are, So it makes it pretty simple. All right, so now I finished my search map. It's not a great plan, but I'm going to print it out anyway. And you'll see up here on the left-hand side, there's up where these icons are, I have a printer icon, and that's my printing mode. So in this case, I want to select all the things I want to show up on my printed map first. And I don't have great ones here, but I'm just going to print a map that's this general area. So it looks okay to me. I've got my labels the way I want, and I'm going to go print. So that's going to open a new tab in the same browser, and it'll provide me with a printing dialog. Okay, so this printing dialog looks like Caltopo to a large extent, but it has a bunch of extra settings. In the upper left corner, you'll see there are some interesting ones. The default is geospatial PDF, which is just printing a PDF map out, which is also transparently geo-registered. If you import it to some other app, it'll know where it is, and it can put it on a larger map, if that makes sense. So you can also print to JPEGs, which is nice. You can order maps from here. You can print to map sheet. And printing to map sheet, I don't know if we'll have time to do a demo today, but what's great about that is if I'm on day 5 of a search and I've got thousands of tracks and I don't want them on everybody's phone and all, I can move those all to a master map and I can print a map sheet of just all the tracks, and then it can show up as an overlay map under map sheets, and it'll say OP1 to OP5 historical tracks. And then I can overlay that on today's map and I can see where people have been. Oh, are those footprints fresh? Are they old? That kind of thing. So that one's nice, but for now, we're just going to print a geospatial PDF. And I'm going to do 8.5 by 11. I'm going to call this search map. I can put a name on it, UTM. I can add lat long on there as well. And in this case, I'm going to keep it in my account just for 7 days. And I can actually add images. This is kind of an advanced one, let's say, but I can add corner images like a legend or something like that if I wanted. In this case, I really don't like these grid lines at lat long because I'm doing a big search area. So I'm actually going to turn the UTM ones off. And actually, I'll leave them on just for printing purposes. And then I hit generate. So actually, in this case, I probably want to make it a horizontal one. So I'm going to go down here and go into landscape mode. And now I've got to adjust my size just a little bit. So let's say this is my whole search area. I'm going to go like this, drag this around a little bit, and say generate. And then this is going to process. It's going to go up to a server, and in a minute or so, it will produce a finished result. But essentially, the red dot lets you move your composition around, and then the little arrows in the corner let you make it bigger or smaller. You can also set it to a fixed scale if you want, and so forth. But it's pretty simple process. And this is what the finished product looks like. So in this one case, it's cluttered because I have a pretty large area here. So there's lots of lats and longs on here. But essentially, it shows me my UTMs. It shows my lat and long for the search area. It has my objects on here, which would be search assignments and so forth. In the lower left corner, you'll see it says search map here. And then it goes in, shows magnetic north correction, which is pretty handy. And then down in this corner, this barcode is scannable, so someone can load it into a Venza or another mapping app if they want, just by scanning that code. So that's pretty cool. And then that map is now accessible for 7 days in my personal account or my team account. And if I chose to extend the life of it, I would just go into my file management and tell it I want to keep this map for a year, let's say. So there's my search map. It's all pretty good. Now, any questions? I know there's a lot of material for people that haven't seen it before, and it's probably pretty simple for people that have done it so far. Thoughts? Okay. All right, I'm going to move right along then, and then and you're shooting for a noon lunch break, right? Okay, hang on a second. Let me bring up my PowerPoint, and I'm going to reshare that. Lost my menu. 1 second. There we go. All right, back to this. Talked about a lot of this stuff. I want to talk about the mobile app. I assume you guys have all used the mobile app pretty much. I mean, it is our go-to. Um, it's fantastic. What I want to touch on here is that it works over satellite now remotely, and a lot of people don't know this yet. I know that the COB, I think there's that California Oregon border SAR group. Those guys have been actively using it. We use it down here now. It is incredible. So let me touch on it. Um, right now, so if you buy a new iPhone or a new Android, you get emergency SOS, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, where you can hold your phone up in the sky like this and point it at a satellite and watch it go over. And you can say, hey, I'm lost, and you fill out a survey, and then SAR will be notified and they'll come rescue you. Apple takes it a step further where you can do free text messages or iMessages through that system too. That's pretty cool, but it is clunky. You have to have a clear sky and you have to hold it up in the sky and move it around and things. But, compared to 5 years ago, it's a lifesaver, right? Or if I have a car crash, that's great. So this new version is called T Satellite, which is a branded version from T-Mobile. And essentially it's Starlink, but it's a little different. It's Starlink direct to cell phones. And right now there's around 7 or 8 thousand Starlink satellites up there. And around 700 of those, 10%, are configured to be direct to phone satellites. When they get the Starship thing working, which is who knows when, then they're going to put these even bigger satellites up, and the bandwidth will go up by like 2 or 3 orders of magnitude. Even now, this thing works like broadband pretty much. You can leave your phone in your pocket. It works great, but it only works with select apps. So here's kind of a list of the important ones. But one of the early beta testers was Caltopo. And I'm telling you, it's amazing. Like it'll update your location every 2 to 3 seconds. You can download tiles when you're out in the middle of nowhere. If people update assignments, they pop up on your map. You can see where everyone else is. The situational awareness is fantastic. So it works with Caltopo, Onyx, All Trails, a bunch of outdoors apps. It works with WhatsApp and Signal. So, for instance, on our team, all of our management groups are on Signal. So we have operations, logistics, duty officers, all this kind of stuff. So if I'm out in the field in the middle of nowhere, I'm still getting all of my Signal dispatches through satellite, which is great. I was just off fishing all week and I'm down in a canyon, miles from any cell signal, and I'm getting my real-time SAR cell messages, which is good and bad, but it works. So what do you need to do that? You need a T-Mobile cell phone plan plus T-Satellite. So if you're on T-Mobile already, you can add it for 10 bucks a month to your account. Most people don't use T-Mobile because it's not great out in the middle of nowhere. So, for instance, I'm a Verizon user. You have to have an unlocked phone on any other carrier, Verizon, AT&T, Visible, whatever you want to use. And then you go online, and T-Mobile they now have a very simple online form, and you can add this for $10 a month per phone, and it includes 50 gigabytes of terrestrial cell data. So, like, you get free 5G cell tower data with it, or included data with it, which is great. And I have to update this slide because now you can sign up online. It's super simple to sign up online now. Just go to T-Mobile and look Google T-Satellite. So it must be a modern iPhone or Android with a second eSIM line. And essentially, it works just like a cell tower. It's just a little slower. You can use Google Maps, you can use Apple Maps, Caltopo, Yahoo Mail, which can sync to Gmail. You can use all the weather apps pretty much, which is important when you're out in the middle of nowhere. So it's a really, really cool feature. And I think in 5 years, SAR will look totally different again because there won't be any dead spots. Everyone will be on the Caltopo map all the time. It's amazing. So anyway, the last part of this first segment is training. Training.caltopo.com. When we started using Caltopo, and even up until 4 or 5 years ago, it was like the Navajo language. Everything was unwritten. There was no training material. There were no training materials except a couple videos here and there. And so it was really difficult to learn how to use it because it is very advanced piece of software. So one of the things Matt Jacobs did when he started building up his team was to add a lot of training materials, and those training materials are really good now. So there's two aspects to it. Training.caltopo.com has pretty much an answer to every question you could have. Like, oh, I don't remember how to do Snap to. You can just type it in there and see how to do Snap to. So it's a really good resource and it's comprehensive. The second part is first response with SARTopo. Caltopo kind of teamed up with NASAR, and they have a certificate program for it's basically a Caltopo training and proficiency class that you do online. And it's based on a lot of the material that I have here and kind of goes through the same concepts I'm going to go through this afternoon. And um, it's a really good way to learn the software. And it probably takes, I think most people say it takes 8 or 10 hours to get through the course, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less, but I do highly recommend that. It's a good class. So that's what I have on segment one. Let me stop the recording here.